The day is finally here. We've got xCloud in the browser and on iOS. But for this video, we're going to talk about xCloud in the browser. The reason being is, one, I've got a Backbone device coming tomorrow, and I think that's going to be a better way to play it on iOS. And also, I think playing in the browser is going to be probably one of the more frequent occurrences, at least in my opinion, or at least how I play gaming, rather than on iOS, at least for now. We'll see more about that once I get a little bit more hands-on time with iOS. So, diving into the browser experience, we are just going to play back some content I recorded earlier today, and we'll walk through the steps because, honestly, there's a lot going on here, and there's just some things you really need to know about. So when you go to xbox.com/play, as long as you have an invite or you're allowed to, you can jump right into the experience. And honestly, it works pretty well. Now, keep in mind, obviously, you have to use a controller. So mine is connected via Bluetooth right now, and you cannot use a keyboard and mouse for the gaming. You can navigate around the UI with a keyboard and mouse. And actually, you have to use the keyboard at some point here to be able to search for games requires the keyboard. There might be an on-screen keyboard, but I didn't find it quickly. But anyways, the controller works really well. And the integration, honestly, just feels pretty darn good. And so you get to fire it up in your browser, and you can see some of the controls here, some of the options. Nothing really too fancy, but honestly, I don't really think you need anything too fancy. You're just looking for a game UI and the ability to just move around and find the title you're looking to play, and then you can go and stream it. Now, in this video, I do stream two different games. I stream Minecraft Dungeons, and I also stream Gears of War, and I do that in the competitive multiplayer arena, if you will. The reason why I do this intentionally is two reasons. One, as I've said multiple times, I think cloud gaming is still kind of regulated to these single player experiences. Minecraft Dungeons is a perfect example. I used to use Ori as my demo game, but I've beaten Ori, and so now I'm just kind of moving on over to Minecraft Dungeons. Maybe I will beat Minecraft Dungeons through the browser. So you will watch me play here. There's a couple things to note. One, this is like super beta thing. Like, this is still early on. This is not the final shipping product. Microsoft, I'm in the first round of invites for this. So things are going to improve. And actually, there were already some hiccups earlier today when the service initially launched, but things have sort of smoothed out. So other things to be aware of is that it's not perfect. You can see here when playing, especially on loading screens, it's a little choppy. Now, most, you'll see what I mean here in a minute, most of that goes away during the gameplay, which is fine. But some of the loading screens just aren't as smooth as you would expect. I'm recording this using XSplit, and it's just recording the screen, so I'm not using the game bar for this experience. I'm actually just recording my entire desktop, but that doesn't really have too much of a performance impact on my machine that I'm playing this on, which is a 7900X with a 2070 Super. But that doesn't really so much matter anymore. But once you get into the game, it's honestly fine. You'll actually see me play pretty much an entire quest here through Minecraft Dungeons, and it's pretty responsive. There's noticeable lag from the controller input to the game experience, but at the same time, that's kind of to be expected. Also, I'm using Bluetooth, so I could probably reduce some of that potentially by hardwiring in, but I was trying to get a similar experience to what I played on Android devices, and Bluetooth is by far just sort of the universal standard for better or for worse. And again, you can see that loading screen kind of PowerPointing across the screen with its just, really slow animations. But again, once you get into the game, you'll see it plays pretty well. So I'm just going to let this roll for a bit, but just know that I'm playing with a Bluetooth controller through the browser, and let's just watch me play some Minecraft Dungeons, if you will. There are some chapters down below if you want to jump to different points, because I do some somewhat interesting stuff at the very end of this gameplay video. couple things just to note while mid-level or whatever, if you will, is unlike on a mobile device, you can definitely tell the difference in resolution versus playing natively versus streaming. On a small phone, obviously, when everything gets compressed, you won't see the differences in resolution. But this is being played on a 4K monitor, and you can definitely tell that it is not at the highest visual fidelity for streaming. But that's okay. It's again, playing through the browser. You're not going to expect things to be perfect. Not to mention, this is for primarily Generation 1 technology from Microsoft. While they have, done many iterations over the years, this is the first sort of shipping and eventually commercialized product. So, in my mind, this is V1, at least for the consumer level. And so you can see frames drop a little bit while playing, but it's nothing major. Some of the misses are me overcompensating and trying to use the analog sticks. But again, this is completely playable. Like, I could actually see myself playing Minecraft Dungeons in the browser to pass the time. Everybody loves achievements. Yay! But really, that is me beating the first level through here. Now you can see some of the UI and graphical elements for when you go to try to quit a game. The easiest way is to go up through the Xbox button and then going to the bottom. And you can also see a little cloud icon up there at the top as well. But if you go down to quit game, then it logs you out and it asks for the little survey. It says, did you like this game, or was the experience good? Nothing really out of the ordinary. If you've used cloud gaming before, you've probably seen these little prompts. Microsoft is just trying to collect feedback about the experience at the end of the day. Now, we are going to jump over to a title here in a second that is, I would say, like on the bottom of the spectrum. Like if Minecraft Dungeons represents the best experience, Gears of War is probably like the worst experience, at least from a multiplayer perspective. Now, not, again, all that surprising that FPS shooters, which are Twitch sensitive, are not designed. I shouldn't say not designed. That's probably not fair. Not really great for this experience yet. Microsoft still has a bit of work to do to really maximize reducing that latency and making it feeling like truly native on the device. But that is, that last 10% is always much harder than the first 90. And so that's like where Microsoft is, in my opinion, with this. But you could probably play the single player version of Gears of War without too much issue, but I really would probably avoid the multiplayer, at least for now, for games like this. Now, Minecraft multiplayer, that would probably work, just because it's more of a casual style game versus a Twitch style shooter. So the loading screens here actually load pretty quick. Nothing really too astonishing to report here. You are streaming it down, but the loading screens they're not bad. Now, there are definitely longer loading screens when you're trying to connect to multiplayer because there's a lot more going on, but when loading the actual games, it's pretty reasonable. It actually honestly feels a little bit slower than the Series X, just because the X is blazingly fast, if you will. But you work through the stuff and you kind of tolerate it, and as Microsoft improves the back end, obviously the end user experience will be improved as well. So you can see the multiplayer here. Now, I haven't played a ton of Gears of War 5 on this account, so I think it's going to put me into like a training room. Also, if you click off the screen, Microsoft says, hey, you got to be clicked back on. You have to use a Bluetooth controller, and it doesn't put you in timeout, but you can't. If you click off the screen, it throws up that prompt immediately, which can be a little bit distracting if you're playing a game and then you click over to like answer a Teams message like I was actually doing right there. That is the experience that you'll get. So if you're again playing online multiplayer, just keep that in mind. But if you're playing a single player game, not so big of a deal. So you'll see here that it will start searching. There's a couple things I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to play through one round just kind of normally, and then you'll see me jump back in because the loading time between like the first load and like a sequential load is reduced. And then after I play through this and show you that it's just not great, I also bring up the task manager that shows off my the bandwidth that it's pulling down, and it also kind of shows you the impact performance on our device.
Oh shit!
So, let's see here. Gears of War. Brad is not good at Gears of War. Just generally not a huge first-person shooter. Nothing specifically against Gears of War. It's just not waiting to spawn here. And here we go. One thing you will notice is that the analog stick latency from left and right and up and down is significantly more pronounced. In a game like this, it's much harder to aim because of that Bluetooth and just general latency of the experience, which is one of the primary reasons why I don't think you should be doing online play, just because it's a little hard. You can see the frames here kind of fall apart real quick.
Ooh, that's a victory!
Hey,
One of our coalition's finest traditions.
Absolutely nothing to that.
You've done us all proud today.
So the next one will show off a little bit more running around and just playing the overall experience. I mean, Gears is a fine game. It has its legions of fans, which is absolutely warranted. That's the brilliance of Game Pass at the end of the day, is I didn't pay for this game. It was just part of Game Pass, or Game Pass Ultimate in this scenario. So I get to play it, but I don't have to continuously, or I didn't have to chunk down the $60 or $70 or whatever games are going for. Right now, Gears is probably a little less just because it's been out for a bit. But here you go, you can see it's full Gears running in my browser, just being streamed from the clouds through some magical bits.
Time to get messy.
And you can see some of the frames dropping here, a little bit more pronounced than, say, in Minecraft Dungeons to be specific. And then you also see the overcompensation when I'm trying to aim at people. It's more difficult for sure. Does a really good job of hurting his feelings.
Altitude shot! I need somebody over here! Oh man, I'm hurt! Magic!
As you can see, it didn't go so well.
Magic!
So, as promised, on the right you will see my task manager, and on the left you can see actually how quick the game booted up. I did start it just slightly into the experience, but it loads up much faster if you're jumping in between games. Like I just was. But the important thing to watch here will be to see the CPU increase and the actual Ethernet or bandwidth requirements. It looks like, I would say somewhere around 15 megabits per second is somewhere where it tops out. Obviously, you are going to need more capacity than that, but that appears to be like the absolute basement bottom that you would have to be able to support an experience like this. It's gonna depend on your network and everything else. It's not solely related to your bandwidth, but that is a bare minimum, at least based off of what I was able to see while I was playing this game. And so As the game loads up, you'll see some spikes, no surprise. But overall though, it's relatively low impact on the end device, which kind of just bodes to the whole experience of, hey, the heavy lifting is done mostly in the cloud. You do have to do some local processing because there's no way to get around from that. But at the same time, you're running effectively a AAA or quad A, whatever you want to call it, game in the browser with relatively little impact, which means you can do it, as we all know, on a low performant device, as low as, say, even mobile phones. So there's a lot of good things that can come out of this. The experience still needs to be refined, and they really need to find some magic for that latency, especially with first-person shooters. But there's some good stuff here. Get into the game, just be watching that data streaming down as cloud gaming is trying to keep up with what's going on with life. So here we go.
Who's next?
2v1 here. I'm trying to get out of there, but I ran in there. Didn't miss. Give it one more shot here so you can watch performance. Yeah, and a little minor hiccup, but mostly pretty stable frame rate here. At least it feels that way. Playing, I don't know the exact resolution that is streaming down from the cloud, but it doesn't look bad. You know, I'll give it a pretty solid pass for, especially being pre-release at this point, being the first round. I think it looks pretty good. I think it's pretty well done. And I was that is really all you need to know, at least initially, for cloud gaming right now in the browser. The takeaway, as it is with many other services of this style, single player experiences, pretty darn good. Competitive multiplayer, it's not there yet. That being said, it does run pretty well. Microsoft has got a pretty good interface. It does work well with the Xbox controller, no surprise there. So browsing in cloud gaming, I'm optimistic about where it's headed. It's not quite there yet, but for single player games like Minecraft Dungeons, it's very close. It's extremely close, I would even say. And that gives me a lot of hope. I don't know how or when Microsoft will get the multiplayer experience like Gears you saw there, or anything else like a Fortnite or Warzone experience, getting it down to like local console level latency. And that might be a ways off, but that's okay. If you can get your first player or single player titles up and running through that anywhere you go, I think that's a pretty big win, because in my experience, most people who are probably using this are not playing extensively. I'm not talking like hours upon hours of gaming in the browser. It's probably more of like, hey, I've got 20 minutes of downtime. Let's just jump in. And from that perspective, I think this has a lot of potential. As we learn more and keep things updated, and we've got some more hands-on stuff with the iOS side coming in the next couple days, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the only BS on this channel is me.